Meta Ads is the fastest way for local services to grow in 2026. And I know this because I've used Meta Ads to generate millions in revenue for hundreds of local businesses. My name's Ozzy Flowers and I help local service businesses add 10K plus to their monthly revenue. So in this video, I'm going to cover why Meta Ads are so powerful for local businesses, the strategies that I use to make Meta Ads easy for local businesses, and the mistakes that will destroy your campaigns if you're not careful. So let's get started. So why are Meta Ads so amazing for local businesses? Well, firstly, it's easy for local businesses to dominate their local market as they only have to compete with other local businesses. Whereas big national brands or international brands, they have to compete with every other large brand that's trying to sell to the same customers or selling a similar product. And the problem with that is there's a ton of good marketers that work for those brands, so the competition is incredibly intense. And intense competition, it just spirals costs. You need to spend more on creating your content, you need to build out your funnel in a more in-depth way, and everything just becomes more complicated. But as a local business, you don't suffer from any of that. The only people that you need to compete with are the guys down the road that serve the same sort of service to the same geographic area. And trust me, those guys probably don't even know how to run a Meta ad. So you've got a huge competitive advantage there if you just know a little bit. Whereas to have a competitive advantage in the international or national markets, you've got to spend a lot and you've got to know a lot. But local businesses, none of those problems. Next up, local people actually want to work with local businesses. So whenever I need something doing at my house, for example, I need a builder or a gardener or whatever it is, I want to work with someone local, right? I don't want to work with some kind of faceless corporate that I'm never going to have some kind of connection with. And that is a local business superpower. You've actually got consumers that will choose you just because you are from the same area as them. And think about it. It makes sense, right? You want to work with someone that you can trust, and living in the same area, that helps build trust, because if you really were that bad, they probably would have heard about it by now. So it's an absolute superpower that local businesses have and most don't appreciate, especially in relation to their corporate competition. Thirdly, you've got your finger on the pulse of your local area. You know what matters in a way that larger competitors just can't. And how often do you see ads for a specific area, but all of the houses look wrong, or the backdrop's wrong, or the trees are wrong? Just things that don't relate to your actual geographic area are included in that ad. And that turns people off. But as a local business, you know exactly what you need to include, and you know things that are important to your potential customers, and you can leverage that in your ads creative. On top of that, for local businesses, results compound and improve over time in a way that just doesn't happen with, say, an e-commerce product. If you have a gardener or a builder or whatever local service it is, maybe a dog groomer, and they provide a really, really good service, you're so much more likely to give a referral. And in a local area, because people are close, they talk, they communicate, the power of those referrals compounds over time. And the more positive sentiment that you can build in a community, the more people that will come to you. The more people that come to you, the more referrals that you get. So again, that's more of a general statement on the power of local business as a whole, but it is super, super relevant to Meta, and I'm going to explain why later when it comes to our creative. And on top of that, one of the things that I love most about Meta Ads for local businesses is that once you've got something that's working, you can just copy and paste it over to a new location if you expand. So let's say that you've got a business that does, again, dog grooming, for example, and you've got a really successful dog grooming salon. If you then open another one in the next city over, you can just take what you've already built and you can just drop it straight into that new city, into that new location. It's actually the best way to scale a local business. And again, if you're looking at something like an e-commerce product, sometimes you have to run completely different ad strategies for different countries or different regions in countries, if it's the USA, for example. With a local business, you just do not have that complexity. So what strategies do I use to build super powerful local Meta business campaigns? The first thing I do is I create a really strong offer. Now, sometimes these offers can be really basic, like a free consultation or a free quotation, but I prefer doing something a little bit more advanced, like feel 80% better in 6 weeks or get £100 back for a physio, for example. That's far more compelling. Now, most of your competitors aren't going to be using an offer at all, or they're going to be using a really, really weak one. And that means when you build a strong one and you have some element of risk reversal in it, you stand out so much more than anyone else that may or may not be running ads. And if you get this right, it's literally going to improve every single important metric in your ad account. So the number one function is that it's going to increase the number of people that will actually engage in your ad, which will make your ads cheaper to run, which means you'll be shown to more people, which means you will get more conversions at a better rate. And that allows you to put more money back into your advertising. And you create this kind of flywheel or feedback loop where success in one area, so having a great offer and making ads cheaper on the front end, allows you actually then to build better infrastructure as well on the back end. So using offers is an absolute non-negotiable in the local business world. And there's so many different offers that you can build. I really recommend using seasonal offers as well, because sometimes you need to refresh that creative, and we're going to get into that a little bit later, and seasonal offers can be a really good processed way of doing that. Now, strategy number 2 is using reviews and testimonials. And by using reviews and social proof, you can actually 2x your results. And I wouldn't be surprised if in some cases it's higher as well. Because the function of a review is that it essentially reduces risk. And I know for local service businesses, Google reviews, testimonials, these kind of things can sometimes be a bit awkward. Notwithstanding the sometimes mental bad reviews you get that just make no sense and you're not even sure if they came from a customer that you've ever seen, but hey, there they are. Maybe it was your competitor, who knows? But also on top of that, sometimes asking for them can be a little bit awkward or make you feel a little bit nervous, but they are so powerful when we plug them directly into our ad creative. And part of the reason that they work so well for local businesses is again because people trust people that are like them more than they do strangers. And if somebody comes from your local area, that gives their opinion, their review or their testimonial far more weight than if it was from someone on the other side of the world, for example. So again, this is an area that local businesses really have a strong competitive advantage. And whenever you have a competitive advantage, that's something that you need to lean into and directly funnel into your creative and whatever you're communicating. And like I said, I really like to include reviews directly in my ad creative, especially from people that are potentially well known in the local area, because it literally supercharges everything that you do. And again, the more engagement you get, the cheaper your ads are going to be to run, the more conversions that you're going to get those conversions at a better rate, and that allows you to invest more in your sort of revenue generating ads machine. And again, it's just a feedback loop that you want to create in your business. Now, strategy number 3 is generating leads and following up with a call. Now, honestly, this is the most powerful way to grow your local service business. And in my view, it's non-negotiable if you're serious about increasing how much money ends up in your bank account at the end of the month. So by capturing contact details within our ad campaigns, you can also include a small light touch sales process. Now, calls work best for this, but you can use emails and SMS too. But like I said, calls without a doubt are the absolute king of converting interested leads from meta ads into bookings. And actually there's some local service providers that we work with that convert 50% of their leads with a simple phone call. They don't even bother with emails, SMS, anything like that. As soon as they get a lead, as soon as they see it come in, they make a call and they get people booked in. And 50% of people that sign up actually end up coming in as clients. And that's absolutely insane. And that's just because they're calling quickly. And the reason that calls work so well, especially again in the local context, is because it's essentially two local people having a chat. You can talk about the local football team, you can talk about the weather, you can talk about the road work that's making it really difficult for everyone to pick up their kids from school. Whatever is going on, you can weave that in, and that makes the conversation so much easier to have, and it makes it more enjoyable for the potential customer as well. So in your local business ads, you need to be generating leads, you need to be capturing those contact details, but then you need to be following up with a call. And if you use a software, something like Go High Level, to track all of that, to manage your pipeline, it's a really easy process. It will take you less than half an hour to an hour a day, depending on how many leads you get, right? If you want loads of leads, you can make it last 8 hours a day. But you know, if you're a busy business owner, then 1 hour a day is literally all it takes to supercharge your business, to launch you into the stratosphere. So those are the 3 strategies that I use to create incredible meta ads campaigns for local businesses. But now let's talk about the mistakes that I often see that will kill your campaign dead in the water before you've even pressed the launch button. So mistake number 1 is location targeting. Now, the number 1 mistake that I see local businesses making is that they make their location radius too wide. And that's often because they worry that there's not enough people within their immediate vicinity. But here you have to be realistic. How far are people actually willing to travel. Because if you're showing ads outside of that radius, then you're just wasting money, you're burning your budget. And hoping that having a bigger audience will somehow benefit you is just wishful thinking. It's not going to. Be realistic. How far do people travel? And keep your location radius tight. And if you don't know exactly how far that location radius is, just ask your customers, not just one or two, ask 10, 20, 30, ask where they come from and try and plot that on a map and understand, okay, this is the approximate radius that I need to be targeting. But other than that, with your targeting, keep everything broad, because especially since the recent Andromeda update, Meta is finding the right people more and more. It's investing more into just putting the ads in front of the right people and using the creative to actually target the right type of person. So keep everything broad and just make sure that that location radius is super, super tight. And remember, you can start super local and then expand and expand and expand and test and see how your numbers improve. But just don't go too big too quick. Mistake number 2 is creative fatigue. So for local businesses, you actually need to refresh your creative much more frequently than potentially national or international brands or much larger campaigns. And the reason is because you've got a much smaller audience. Let's say that you're only targeting 5 kilometers around your business. Well, there's a limited number of people within that radius. So after a short amount of time, you're actually going to have shown that ad to people multiple times, and it's going to be saturated. They're not going to be interested in it anymore. And that's what we call creative fatigue. The ad is no longer working. Now, the solution for this problem is just to create more ads more often. So you need to give greater variability to re-engage people, so people don't feel like they're just watching the same thing over and over again on repeat ad nauseum and it drives them mental. Give them something new to re-stimulate or to re-spark some level of interest. Now, one of the easiest ways that you can do this practically is just to cycle through a hook. Now, a hook is the first 3 seconds of a video, and it's actually the most important by far. And what you can do is you can keep the body of the video or the ad. You can keep the body of the creative predominantly the same. So let's say that we're creating a reel. We can keep like everything that happens from second 3 up to second 60. We can keep all of that the same, and we can just test different hooks on the front end. We can test different variations of those first 3 seconds. And that's one of the most powerful ways to create a lot of different creative super, super quickly. And another bonus tip for creative and making compelling ads for local businesses is tie it to seasonality as well. Christmas, Halloween, Valentine's Day, summer, whatever it is, try and wrap your offer around that seasonal element, because your engagement is going to go up by a considerable amount, and that creates that feedback loop that we've spoken about a few times now. And also it makes it super, super easy for you to think, okay, what do I need to do with my ads this week? Well, if Christmas is coming up, make them Christmas themed, okay? And it also kind of gives you a natural cadence as well. So you're not thinking like, when do I need to upgrade my ads? When do I need to change them? When do I need to do my new creative? You can identify 6 to 12 different periods throughout the year and just run seasonal ads across those times. Now, mistake number 3 is not making it clear enough that you're a local business. And honestly, this is an epidemic for local businesses. They just do not make it clear enough that they're actually in the local area within their ads. And that can be within the creative or within the copy. And the reason is that local businesses can often trick themselves into thinking that everybody already knows who they are, because every customer that comes to them does, right? Every customer that they speak to, they do know them, and quite often they've known them for years. But that doesn't mean that everyone in your local area does. And even if you think that every single person that lives in your area knows about you, you pretty much know all of them. I can guarantee you that you don't, because there's constantly new people moving into the area. Or there's people that won't immediately recognize you online through your brand or through your content. And in those cases, we want to make it crystal clear immediately that we are a local business. And there's a couple of ways that we can do that, right? We can mention the location that we are operating in. So I spent a lot of time living in Plymouth, for example, and if I was running a landscaping business in Plymouth, I'd make it really clear that I am from Plymouth, Plymouth-based landscaping company. It can be that simple. Or I would say it in my ad creative. I would be super, super specific. On top of that, you can actually film some of your content in front of local landmarks, okay? So areas that everyone is gonna recognize, or maybe outside of your venue or shop or whatever it is, if you've got a physical location, or in front of your vans, for example, if you're a mobile service, because people may have seen them driving around and they'll put 2 and 2 together. But basically, you need to be very, very specific. You need to include your brand name and you need to include the location name. And even if you think everyone knows that you're from that area and that you're a local business, still do it, because you have to remember that not every customer knows you. And if you don't do it, they're just going to see you like another faceless corporate brand that they've got no reason to connect with. You're going to get worse engagement, your ads are going to cost more, and we're going to create this reverse flywheel effect, which is absolutely what we do not want. So that brings us to the end of this video, and it's a good time for me to tell you about Local. It's a free community that we've started to help local service businesses get at least an extra 20 bookings a week. It's also got our exact meta ads campaigns, creative and copy included, so you don't have to guess. You can see what top agencies are doing to get results for their clients. You can join for free using the link in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.